Good morning, Karoo, or good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon here. 12:15 on Saturday. What's the date? It is the 10th of September. And just thought I'd pop in and say hi. Sorry there was no sound on the last video. I think I explained in my email that actually I can show you. I've got this external M-Box Mini that I do recording through, and when it's plugged into the computer, it actually handles all the sound, and I think I unplugged it and didn't. I have to change the sound settings on the computer in order to make sure that it's actually getting anything, and it wasn't. So, anyway, you got a nice pantomime video, which I will actually take down off our site because it's a waste of space. Life here has been very busy all week. So, let's see. Monday night, Taryn had a game. Tuesday night, Gareth had a game. I went up to Boardman to watch that. And Gareth scored a goal, which was then disallowed for him being offside. And they lost 8-0 and didn't play well. Then Wednesday night, Taryn had another game. Thursday night, Gareth had a game in LeGrand, and I wasn't able to go because I had a work meeting. We were doing a presentation to the Indian Land Tenure Foundation. So I was basically worked about 13 and a half hours on Thursday, which I know is just an average day for you, but it was a lot for me. So then last night, yesterday I took the afternoon off, and Scott Fairley and I and Gareth and assorted other young men moved 7 tons of wood pellets for our stove. Brought the Kendrick's truck and went and hauled that. And then we Mom and Dad and Sal Purith showed up, and Sal was visiting them, so they came down, and Sal and I just finished moving the pellets, so Sal and I took the truck back, and then I went and picked up Gareth from soccer practice, came home, and we ate Oreo, Bradlin's cow. Good. Yeah, it was actually the best steak I think I've ever had in my life. It was incredibly tender and just delicious. And then we went for a walk with Sal, and lo and behold, it was the next morning. And so I puttered around this morning. Actually, I kind of goofed off all morning. I also watched the Galaxy game last night. After we got home from our walk, I watched the second half of it. LA won 1-0, inching their way towards Supporters Shield, the regular season championship. They're actually getting pretty close now. The probability of them losing out is getting lower and lower. And I did, maybe someday I'll explain. I'm not going to do it today. I did a statistical thing where I observed number of points. So if you add up 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, number of points that the Galaxy has accumulated over a 6-game stretch, which is their remaining games. And I looked at the distribution of that over the entire season. So there's like 28. They played 28 games, so there's like 23 6-game stretches from that period. And you can look at the maximum and minimum number of points they've scored through there. And you can compare that to the maximum and minimum number of points that their opponents have scored over the remaining game, game stretch equal to the remaining games they have. And then you can look at the combination of those and see how many times there have been situations where the Galaxy have lost enough points and their opponents have gained enough points on them for them to win the Shield. And it's the chance. Actually, there's only one team in the league that has where there's combinations where they would win the championship, and that would be Seattle at this point. but the probability of that happening, observed probability, is about 2.5% at this point. And yeah, and that's not the actual probability of them winning the championship, but that's just assuming that the distribution of number of points scored. Anyway, I said I was going to explain it later, and I just went through. I thought it was pretty ingenious to come up with this method, because if you look at it, and Seattle's just I think they're 7 points behind going into today's game. In Seattle, if they win, they'll only be 4 points behind. But even at that point, with 4 points behind, with both teams with 6 games left to play, if you look at what's happened over the season, the probability of Seattle catching LA is low. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But the 4 points, it's misleading, because you look at that and go, well, LA just has to lose 2 games, and Seattle wins 2, and if that's it, or LA ties a game and loses a game, and Seattle's caught them. But if you look at all season, Seattle's only lost LA's only lost 3 games all season. So the probability of them, and then you have to say the probability of Seattle actually winning all their games, which is actually quite low. As a matter of fact, no team has won 5 straight games all season. The best record over 5 games is 4 wins and a tie from any team in the entire league. So yeah, you expect all teams to drop some points in the last 6 games. But anyway, this is probably way more detail. I've been thinking about this, obviously, and I enjoy playing with the numbers. As I said in my previous video, I'm sorry that Beth's mom isn't feeling well, and I hope that whatever's wrong with her is quickly identified, and that I think she should take some time off. I think she should take at least a couple months off from work and just recover and let the stress not bother her, and if she can do that, if she's able to do that. I mean, maybe she'd get bored and it would be worse for her to be at home, but it seems like a good idea to me. So yeah, Sarah got a rejection letter from her agent yesterday. So her next book, The Good Night, which is a straight historic fiction. It's a murder mystery. Was rejected, and it's interesting because it's a fairly formulaic rejection letter where it says, "We really like your writing, but X was wrong with this book, so after long careful consideration, we decided we can't publish it." And what they said was wrong with it was that her characters were too contemporary. Which is, it's one of those things where it seems like a real quibble to me. I mean, essentially, they looked at it again and thought that didn't make financial sense with this particular book. And I think I've talked to you in the past about I think there's one of the interesting things about Sarah's books is that they're extremely well researched and historically accurate to where they're intended to be. But then they have a contemporary feel about them. The characters are easy to identify with, and so the people who want contemporary characters don't care about the complexity of the history, and the people who like the complexity of the history don't want contemporary characters. So maybe that's what I think what the publishing world is thinking, but of course she seems to be perfectly content to sell lots of books online and make lots of money doing that. So she's looks like she's preparing to put her book up online. I'm going to try to convince her to try one more publisher, but she's shaking her head. But I'm going to, I am the master of my home, and so I will tell her what she has to do, and she will obey me, as is her obligation. So anyway, what do you have to say to that, Sarah?
No.
Yes, we're going to go to lunch right after this, and we'll arm wrestle for it. So that's interesting. This roundup started this morning. The roundup parade, or the dress-up parade, was this morning. Gareth went down and ran around downtown and ended up finding his friends. and hanging out with them. Oh, actually, watching Gareth play soccer actually was really kind of cool. He's been starting on JV, which I wasn't sure was going to happen. He wasn't sure was going to happen, and he's getting tons of playing time, playing most of both the games so far. He's doing well. You know, the game I watched, not only did he score the goal, and the offside, it was one of those things where he did the right thing, he made the right run, and the guys on his team didn't make the pass until it was too late. And he was a really nice goal. I mean, he came in one-on-one and he finished it really cleanly with a side-footed shot into the top of the net, top corner of the net. He also made some great passes. He actually, it's really interesting because he does a really good job of seeing space and getting the ball into space where his teammates have an advantage to win the ball. So he'll. About me. Yes, I'm talking about you, Gareth. So he'll make he made a really nice pass at one point where he kicked the ball through the middle, and I was like, "What is that?" And it was just a really nice ball between the defenders, and his forward had a chance to run onto it and actually got the ball alone in front of the goalie, and then didn't have the skill to even get off a shot. But apparently he made some other passes like that against Legrand, Sarah said. And he also moves the ball really quickly, lots of one-touch passes. So it's really fun watching him play. His friend Riley scored a goal against Legrand. They lost 3-1 in that game on Thursday night, which I unfortunately didn't get to watch. So, yeah, it's a bunch of stuff going on. You know, I could talk more philosophically about life and death and the world as we know it, but I'm kind of tired of talking about that stuff at the moment. We're having dinner tonight with the O'Daniels, and I think Mom Woodbury's coming down. Did I mention my mom and dad and Sal? Yes, we're here. They just left. Actually, they're up having lunch with Bren and Carew right now in Walla Walla. Oh, Carew, it's kind of funny. So Carew was applying for a job at the museum where Bryn works, and he told Sarah that there were so many people applying for it that he wasn't even going to bother, and Sarah was like, "You need to apply anyway and let them make that decision." Well, he got the job, which is nice. And did he have an interview yesterday? It was an interview yesterday, so he went in for the interview and got the job yesterday. Sarah, is that what you said?
Yeah, and got the job at the same time.
And then he also auditioned for the men's a cappella group called the T-Tones. And I think that audition went well. I think they're going to have callbacks. He's going to find out, but he was really pleased. He felt like they were really, really positive about his audition, and I guess one of the guys who was judging the audition saw him in the dining hall and came up to him and told him he did a good job. So he was pretty pleased with that. So yeah, life is moving along, and we're doing well. So Sarah and I are going to go out to lunch, and I'm going to convince her to be patient because she's got a brand new book anyway that just went up, and I think she should wait about 3 months before she puts up her next one, 2 or 3 months. And why not, try another publisher over that period of time. So you tell me what you think, and the thing is that what Sarah's likely to do, she's likely to publish it like today.
Nope.
Because she's reading through it right now, and so she'll be like, "Oh, I'll put it up next week," and then the next thing you know, it'll be up, and it will have been up for 3 or 4 days before she tells anyone. That's how Sarah works. But until I talk to you again, I'm still dead.